You wouldn't even be here if it weren't for us teaching you discipline. My mother's voice rang out across my flower shop, causing every customer to freeze mid-transaction. I stood there, surrounded by the empire I'd built with my own bleeding hands, watching my family try to rewrite history in front of a reporter from Forbes. The journalist's recorder was still running, capturing every word as my brother Eric stepped forward with that familiar, condescending smile. Come on, Selena, tell them how I helped you with the business model. Stop! My voice cut through the shop like scissors through silk ribbon. You want to claim credit? In front of all these people? After everything? I pulled out my phone, my fingers surprisingly steady. Then let's talk about what really happened, starting with my grand opening day that none of you attended. I turned to the reporter. You want the real story? When I was 18, I won a national floristry competition. The prize was $10,000 and a mentorship with a renowned botanical designer. Eric convinced our parents I was too young to handle that much money, that I'd waste the opportunity. He volunteered to manage it for me. That money went into his first gym. I never saw a penny. When I asked about it years later, he said it was family investment, and I should be grateful he turned it into something successful. Eric's face flushed red. That's not... You're twisting... And Chloe? I continued, my voice gaining strength. Sweet, successful Chloe, who created a fake Instagram account to leave one-star reviews on my business page. Oh yes, @ConcernedLocal 2023. I figured out it was you when you accidentally posted from your main account before deleting it. But screenshots last forever, don't they? Chloe's perfectly composed face cracked. I was trying to give you constructive feedback. Constructive? You wrote that my arrangements looked like a child's art project and that I was clearly in over my head. You tagged local wedding planners to warn them. You reported my business license as potentially fraudulent, triggering an investigation that cost me 3 months and $2,000 in legal fees. 3 years ago, I was just Selena Martinez, 27 years old, the family dreamer who everyone tolerated with patronizing smiles. While my brother Eric ran his chain of fitness franchises, and my sister Chloe climbed the corporate ladder at a Fortune 500 company, I was the one who played with flowers. Their words, not mine. Growing up in our Connecticut suburb, success in the Martinez family had a very specific definition: six-figure salaries, corner offices, and business cards with impressive titles. My parents, both retired executives, had mapped out our lives before we could even spell career. Eric got the business degree they paid for. Chloe got the MBA they celebrated. I got the eye rolls when I announced I was opening a flower shop. But it went deeper than just different career paths. Eric had this way of rewriting history to make himself the hero of every story. When I won a state competition for floral design at 16, he told everyone at his college that I'd gotten lucky with a hobby contest. When I saved for 2 years to buy professional floristry equipment, he announced at Thanksgiving that I was blowing money on arts and crafts while he was building an empire. The night before my SATs, he kept me up until 3 a.m. with his gym friends, then told our parents I'd been too anxious to sleep, concerned big brother that he was. Chloe operated differently. She positioned herself as the caring sister who was just being realistic about my limitations. I'm only saying this because I love you, she'd preface, before explaining why my dreams were setting myself up for disappointment. She'd screenshot my Instagram posts about flowers and send them to our cousins with crying laughing emojis. Once, she accidentally forwarded me an email where she called my passion Selena's little flower phase. You know how she gets obsessed with things then quits. A flower shop? My father had laughed at our Sunday dinner, not even trying to hide his amusement. Mija, that's a hobby, not a business. Floristry is $1 billion industry, Dad, I'd said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. So is fast food, but you don't see us opening a burger joint, Eric had chimed in, earning approving chuckles from around the table. That was always how it went. Every family gathering, every group chat, every conversation somehow circled back to how Selena was wasting her potential. Never mind that I'd studied botanical design, taken business courses at night while working 2 jobs, or that I'd saved every penny for 5 years to avoid taking loans. To them, flowers were pretty things bored housewives arranged on weekends. The irony wasn't lost on me that these same people who dismissed my dreams had no problem taking credit when those dreams grew into something undeniable. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a girl with dirt under her fingernails and dreams bigger than her family's expectations built something beautiful, and why I finally had to cut the thorns from my life. The morning of my grand opening, I arrived at my shop at 4 a.m. Every muscle in my body ached from weeks of renovation work I'd done myself, painting walls in soft sage green, installing floating shelves, arranging and rearranging the vintage apothecary bottles I'd collected from estate sales. This wasn't just a store, it was my soul laid bare in petals and stems. As I arranged the first bouquet of the day, my hands trembled slightly, muscle memory from childhood when Eric would accidentally knock over my flower arrangements at home. "Oops, didn't see your weeds there, Sel," he'd say, stepping on the scattered petals with deliberate slowness. I was 12 then, entering my first flower arrangement in the school fair. He was 17, already the golden boy with his varsity leather jacket. The morning of the fair, I found my arrangement in the trash, replaced with a note in Eric's handwriting. "Did you a favor, saved you from embarrassment." And Chloe? She was subtler but no less cruel. She'd wait until I was excited about something, a new technique I'd learned, a rare flower I'd cultivated, then casually mention how some people peak in high school art class, or how hobbies are so important for people who aren't academically gifted. The weekend before my shop opening, she'd sent me a TikTok about delusional entrepreneurs with just a thinking emoji. No words needed. The Martinez siblings had perfected the art of emotional vandalism. I'd named it Wild Bloom, a name my sister Chloe called too whimsical for serious business. But I didn't care. Every detail was intentionally mine. The hand-lettered signs I'd painted, the reclaimed wood counter I'd sanded and stained, the carefully curated selection of rare orchids I'd driven 6 hours to pick up from a specialty grower. By 9 a.m., I'd arranged the opening day inventory. Buckets of peonies that looked like scoops of strawberry ice cream, cascading jasmine that perfumed the entire space, and sunflowers that stood at attention like golden soldiers. I'd even created special bouquets for my family, my mother's favorite white roses, my father's birds of paradise, because he always had to be exotic, Eric's bold red anthuriums, and Chloe's precise calla lilies. The shop was set to open at 10 a.m. I kept checking my phone, reading the group chat where I'd shared the invitation weeks ago, complete with the address, time, and a heartfelt message about what this meant to me. The last message was mine, sent that morning. "Can't wait to see you all there." Read at 8:47 a.m. by everyone. No responses. By 10:30, as my first customers, strangers who'd seen my Instagram posts, were complimenting the displays, my phone buzzed with a notification. Mom had posted in the family group chat a photo of the whole family at Eric's recreational softball game. "Supporting our star athlete, Eric's team made it to the semifinals. Hashtag family first, hashtag proud mom." A customer asked if I was okay. I hadn't realized I was crying until I felt the tear drop onto the bouquet I was wrapping. 2 days later, my father texted, "Need to discuss your flower situation. Family meeting Sunday, 4 p.m. Your flower situation. Not your business, not your shop. Your flower situation. I showed up to my childhood home that Sunday with dirt under my fingernails from repotting orchids and a defiant tilt to my chin. They were all waiting in the living room like some kind of intervention panel. Dad had actually printed out articles. Eric had his laptop open to spreadsheets. Mom had her reading glasses on, which meant she was taking this seriously. But what really caught my eye was Chloe's phone, strategically placed to record. She'd done this before, during my college graduation party when I'd had one too many drinks and cried about feeling like the family failure. That video became her favorite ammunition, shared in concern whenever I tried to assert myself. "Remember when you admitted you couldn't handle pressure?" she'd say, her voice honeyed with fake sympathy. Selena, honey, my father began, pulling out a Wall Street Journal article with highlighted sections. We need to talk about reality. 90% of small businesses fail within the first year. Flower shops specifically have a failure rate of 82% in urban markets, Eric interrupted, turning his laptop toward me. I ran the numbers based on your location, foot traffic, and demographic data. You're looking at maybe 6 months before you're underwater. Assuming she's even keeping proper books, Chloe added, examining her manicure. No offense, Sel, but you've never been good with numbers. I sat there, feeling like I was 15 again, being lectured about my grades while Eric's trophies gleamed on the mantel. I have a business plan. I have an accountant. I have a hobby that's gotten out of hand, my mother said gently, reaching for my hand. Mija, there's no shame in admitting you're in over your head. That's why we're here. The words transported me back to my college graduation when I'd won the Dean's Award for my botanical design thesis. Eric had shown up late, still in his gym clothes, and spent the entire ceremony on his phone closing some deal. When they called my name, Chloe was taking a selfie with her boyfriend. But the real kicker came at dinner afterward. While I held my award, Eric launched into a story about his baby sister who draws with flowers to his business partners, making my academic achievement sound like kindergarten finger painting. Chloe had chimed in, "It's sweet that they give out awards for everything nowadays. Participation trophy culture, right?" My parents had laughed. My father cleared his throat, bringing me back to the present, shifting into his former CEO voice. We've discussed this as a family, and we think the best solution is to bring Eric in as a managing partner. He can handle the finances, the operations, the real business side. You can focus on what you enjoy, the creative part, arranging flowers. It's actually a generous offer, Eric said, already talking like he owned the place. I'll only take 40% equity for my expertise and connections. You keep majority ownership, but I'll handle everything that actually matters. Everything that actually matters. The same phrase he'd used when he helped me with my college applications, secretly withdrawing my applications to out-of-state schools because everything that actually matters is here. I only found out when acceptance deadlines passed and admissions offices told me they'd received cancellation notices. He'd convinced our parents I was too anxious to leave home. They believed him, like they always did. And there was Chloe, examining her fresh manicure, the one she'd gotten with my birthday money last year. Oh, she'd paid me back, eventually, in Venmo transactions of $1.37 here, $2.89 there, spread over months with notes like, "For my baby sister who's still learning about money." Death by 1,000 condescending paper cuts. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Don't be stubborn, Chloe sighed. This is Eric being nice. Do you know how much his consultation services usually cost? I said no. I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady. Wild Bloom is mine. I painted every wall, chose every supplier, built every relationship. If I fail on my own terms. You're being ridiculous, my mother snapped. We're trying to help you succeed. No, I said, heading for the door. You're trying to take credit for something you never believed in until you thought it might be worth something. But here's the thing. It's already worth everything to me. I left to the sound of my father saying I'd be back when reality hit. Eric muttering about my ingratitude. Chloe declaring I'd always been too sensitive. A week later, Chloe forwarded me a link with just a laughing emoji. It was a local business blog post titled "Flower Shop, David Takes on Fitness Goliath." The article compared my little flower experiment to Eric's fitness empire, complete with quotes from anonymous sources about how the Martinez family was divided over my rebellious venture. The anonymous sources used phrases only my family would use. They knew details only my family would know. The blogger even mentioned the grand opening no one attended, spinning it as me choosing to go solo despite family wisdom. But the cruelest detail? The article mentioned my first major client cancellation, a wedding worth $5,000 that had mysteriously pulled out last minute. What the article didn't mention was that the bride's brother went to Eric's gym. What it didn't say was that Eric had told him, over protein shakes and deadlifts, that his unstable sister was playing florist and couldn't be trusted with something as important as a wedding. The bride had been kind enough to tell me the truth when she canceled, apologetic but firm. She couldn't risk her big day on someone whose own family didn't trust them. Chloe had been more surgical in her sabotage. She'd joined the same women's business network I was trying to break into, arriving at meetings 15 minutes early to express concern about her fragile sister who's always been a bit too sensitive for business. She'd cornered the network president at a wine tasting, tears in her eyes, explaining how she was so worried about me, how I'd always struggled with reality, how the family was trying to protect me from myself. By the time I applied for membership, I was rejected without explanation. It took months before a sympathetic member quietly told me why. Your sister made you sound like you were one bad day from a breakdown. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call them all out. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I channeled my fury into my work. I started reaching out to every local business I could think of. The coffee shop on Main Street. Would they like fresh flowers for their tables? The new bistro downtown? How about weekly centerpiece arrangements? The boutique hotel by the river? What if we partnered for their lobby displays? For every rejection, I sent out 2 more proposals. For every, "we'll think about it," I followed up with samples. I created Instagram content at midnight, responded to DMs at dawn, and delivered arrangements myself to save on costs. 3 months in, I landed my first wedding. Small, just 50 guests, but the bride cried when she saw her bouquet. Peonies and garden roses with cascading silk ribbon, exactly like the Pinterest photo she'd shown me, but somehow more personal, more alive. She posted photos that went viral in our local wedding groups. That one wedding led to 3 more. Those 3 led to 10. By month 6, when Eric's spreadsheet said I should be bankrupt, I was hiring my first part-time employee. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was knee-deep in eucalyptus for a corporate event. Metro Business Weekly wanted to do a feature on successful young entrepreneurs in Connecticut. They'd seen my social media, heard about my wedding work, noticed the partnerships with local businesses. Could they come by Thursday for an interview and photo shoot? I said yes before my imposter syndrome could kick in. That night, I made the mistake of sharing the news in the family group chat. Excited to announce Wild Bloom will be featured in Metro Business Weekly. Mom. That's nice, dear. Chloe. Is that the free newspaper they leave at coffee shops? Eric. Make sure you mention the family business background. It's good for the Martinez brand. Dad. Don't say anything that could affect Eric's business relationships. Not one congratulations. Not one, we're proud of you. Thursday arrived with a reporter named Janet and a photographer who kept saying my shop was absolutely magical, like stepping into a secret garden. We talked for 2 hours about my vision, my process, how I'd built relationships with local growers, my commitment to sustainable practices. Your family must be so proud, Janet said, glancing at a photo I kept on my desk, an old family portrait from happier times, or times I'd thought were happier. Before I could answer, the shop door chimed. In walked Eric, dressed in his best suit, holding a box of his branded protein shakes. Thought you might need some energy for the photo shoot, he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. As her business advisor, I always make sure she's taking care of herself. Janet looked confused. Business advisor? Oh, Selena didn't mention? Eric was already extending his hand for a handshake. Eric Martinez, Martinez Fitness Enterprises. I've been guiding her through the business side of things. Family helps family, you know? Actually, I said, my voice carrying a strength I'd been cultivating like my rarest orchids, Eric isn't involved with Wild Bloom at all. He's just my brother, dropping by. Come on, Sel, Eric laughed, that dismissive chuckle I'd heard my whole life. Don't be modest. Tell them about the business model I helped you develop. What business model? I turned to face him fully. The one where you said I'd fail in 6 months? Or the one where you wanted 40% of my business to mansplain my own industry to me? Janet's recorder was still running. The photographer was still shooting. And for once, I didn't care about keeping family business private. Eric, you need to leave. This is my interview about my business that I built, without any help from the family that couldn't even bother to show up for my grand opening because they were too busy cheering at your adult softball game like you were heading to the major leagues. The silence that followed was beautiful, like the pause between lightning and thunder. Eric's face went through several shades of red before he muttered something about ungrateful sisters, and left, his protein shakes forgotten on my counter. Janet looked at me with something like respect. Would you like to tell me about building this business on your own terms? Yes, I would. The magazine article came out 2 weeks later with the headline, Wild Bloom, How Selena Martinez Grew a Flower Empire from Seed to Success. It featured a full-page photo of me in my shop, surrounded by an explosion of flowers that seemed to burst from the page like hope itself. The article mentioned my innovative Birth Month Blooms program, personalized arrangements based on birth flowers that had generated a 3-month waiting list. It talked about my partnerships, my sustainable practices, my commitment to supporting local growers. It didn't mention my family at all. The morning it published, my phone exploded. Orders came flooding in. 3 wedding planners reached out. A corporate client wanted to discuss a year-long contract. The local news wanted to do a segment. But the most interesting message came in the family group chat. Mom. Selena, we need to talk about this article. Dad. Very disappointed you didn't mention the family foundation that made this possible. Chloe. Kind of selfish to pretend you did this alone. Eric. I could sue you for defamation for what you said about me. I was typing a response when another message appeared. From my cousin Maria in New Jersey. Saw the article. So proud of you, Prima. Despite what Aunt Teresa says, we all know you did this yourself. Despite what Aunt Teresa says, my mother had been telling the extended family a different story. An hour later, while I was processing what felt like my 100th order of the day, my entire family walked through my shop door. It was the first time they'd all been here together. My mother was wearing her public face, the one she used for church and company events. My father had his CEO posture. Eric looked like he was attending a hostile takeover. Chloe was already taking photos, probably for her Instagram story. They'd timed it perfectly. The shop was full of customers. The local news crew was setting up for their afternoon segment. There were literally 3 brides-to-be browsing my wedding portfolio. There's our successful daughter, my mother announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. She pulled me into a hug that felt like a restraint. We're so proud of our little entrepreneur. My father stepped forward, addressing the room like it was a board meeting. The Martinez family has always supported each other's ventures. We're thrilled to see Selena applying everything we taught her. Actually, Eric added, inserting himself into the news crew's frame, as someone with 7 successful franchises, I've been mentoring. Stop. The word came out of me like a thunderclap. Everyone in the shop turned to stare. Just stop. I pulled away from my mother's grip, my voice steady and clear. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up now, when there are cameras and customers and success to attach yourselves to. Selena, my mother hissed, you're making a scene. No, Mom, you're making a scene. You're all making a scene by showing up to my business, the one you called a hobby, a waste of time, a flower situation, and pretending you were part of this. I turned to the news crew, who were filming everything. Good. Let them. You want to know the truth about family support? My family didn't come to my grand opening because they were busy celebrating my brother's 7th identical gym. They tried to take over my business because they assumed I couldn't handle it. They told everyone I would fail. You ungrateful, Eric started, but I cut him off. Ungrateful? I laughed, and it felt like flowers blooming in my chest. I'm ungrateful? I painted every wall in this place while you all shared memes about trust fund kids playing shop owner, even though I've never taken a cent from any of you. While you were at your softball games being cheered on for hitting a ball in a recreational league for grown men trying to relive high school, I was building every relationship, earning every client, creating every arrangement with these hands. I held them up, still stained with chlorophyll and pride. You want credit for my success? Then where were you during my failures? Where were you when I cried over rejected proposals? When I couldn't make rent? When I thought maybe you were right and I was just playing with flowers? The shop was silent, except for the whir of the news camera. I'm done, I said, looking each of them in the eye. I'm done trying to earn your approval. I'm done pretending your validation matters. I'm done being the family disappointment you get to claim when it's convenient. This is my garden. I planted it. I watered it. I made it grow. And you? I gestured toward the door. You're just weeds I should have pulled a long time ago. You'll regret this, my father said, his CEO voice cracking. Family is everything. No, I said. Family is the people who show up when you're planting seeds, not just when you're harvesting success. And that? I looked around my shop, at my employee Sarah, who'd brought me coffee every morning during the hard months, at Mrs. Chen, who'd been my first customer, and now brought me homemade dumplings every Friday, at the news crew who'd treated my story with respect. That's not you. Eric stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear, that familiar cruel smile playing at his lips. You know what Mom keeps in her jewelry box? Your hospital bracelet from when you tried to. From when I was 15 and hospitalized for exhaustion and dehydration, I said loudly, clearly making sure the cameras caught every word. After you and Chloe convinced me I was worthless for so long that I stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped believing I deserved to take up space. After you told everyone at school I was attention-seeking when I fainted in biology class. After Chloe posted my medical papers on Facebook asking for prayers for her troubled sister, when all I needed was a family that didn't treat me like I was broken for being different. The shop went completely silent. Even the street noise seemed to fade. You want to weaponize my lowest moment? I continued, my voice steady as steel. The moment that happened because of years of you two telling me I was too sensitive, too weak, too much of a dreamer. That's exactly why you don't get to claim any part of my success. Because while you were tearing me down, I was learning to build myself back up, petal by petal, bloom by bloom. They left in a storm of muttered threats and wounded pride. Eric paused at the door, turning back with venom in his eyes. You just killed your business. No one in our network will work with you now. I smiled, real and free. Your network never worked with me anyway. I built my own. The door closed behind them with the gentle chime of bells I'd hung myself, and the shop erupted in spontaneous applause. One of the brides-to-be was crying. Mrs. Chen was nodding approvingly. The news reporter was grinning like she'd just won an Emmy. That news segment went viral. Not just local viral, actual viral. Flower shop owner tells off toxic family became a trending topic. The video got millions of views. My DMs flooded with stories from other people who'd built something beautiful despite their family's doubts. But more importantly, my life got lighter. I changed my phone number. I left the family group chat. I stopped checking if they'd seen my social media posts. I stopped leaving that empty chair at my workshop events, hoping maybe this time they'd show up. 6 months after that confrontation, Wild Bloom opened its second location. A year later, I launched an online course teaching other dreamers how to start their own flower businesses. Eric's gyms, meanwhile, struggled when a corporate chain moved in. He never asked for my help, and I never offered. The last time I saw my family was at my grandmother's 85th birthday. I came late, left early, and brought the most beautiful arrangement I'd ever made. Not for them, but for the woman who'd secretly sent me $500 when I was starting out with a note that said, Para tus sueños, mija. For your dreams. They miss you, she whispered as I hugged her goodbye. They miss the idea of me, I corrected gently. The daughter who would have made them look good without making them uncomfortable. But that girl died the day they chose Eric's recreational softball game over my first dream. Now, 3 years since that confrontation, Wild Bloom has 12 locations across New England. I employ 43 people, mostly women, who were told their dreams were too small, too soft, too impossible. We've done flowers for celebrity weddings, corporate launches, and even a presidential dinner. But my favorite moments are still the quiet ones. Early mornings in the original shop, just me and the flowers, arranging beauty from chaos. The grandmother who tears up at her anniversary bouquet. The teenager who saves up to buy her mom birthday flowers. The little girl who presses her nose against the window and whispers magic. Last week, a young woman came in, dirt under her fingernails and dreams in her eyes. "My family thinks I'm crazy," she said, "but I want to open a butterfly garden, a place where people can heal." I handed her a card for my small business mentorship program, the one I run for free because success means nothing if you climb alone. Families don't always understand gardens, I told her. They see dirt where we see potential. They see mess where we see growth. But here's the secret. The most beautiful gardens are often planted by people who were told nothing would grow. She left with hope and my direct number. Because the family you choose, the one that celebrates your first sprout as much as your full bloom, that's the garden worth tending. Sometimes I wonder if my biological family ever thinks about that day in the shop. If they ever realize that their contempt was just compost for my confidence. If they understand that every flower that blooms in my shops is a testament to what grows when you stop seeking water from poisoned wells. But mostly I don't think about them at all. I'm too busy growing. The thing about flowers is they're programmed to reach toward light. Cut them off from toxic soil, give them proper nutrients, and watch how they thrive. We're not so different, really. We just sometimes forget that we have the right to transplant ourselves. My name is Selena Martinez. I built a flower empire from seed to success. I did it without my family's support, survived their sabotage, and learned that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can grow is the courage to bloom without permission. And if you're watching this, wondering if your dreams are too small, too silly, too impossible, let me tell you something. The only approval you need is your own. The only permission required is the one you give yourself. And the only family that matters is the one that shows up with watering cans, not just when the flowers are in full bloom. Plant your dreams anyway. Some gardens are meant to grow wild. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own dreams? What did you choose?